The Eglinton Crosstown LRT hasn't even opened yet, but do you think that's going to stop me from making a video about it? The answer may not surprise you. There's been talk about putting higher order transit on Eglinton Avenue for a long time. It makes sense. It's a major arterial road and it's a significant distance away from the nearest parallel transit line. This line most directly results from the 2007 Transit City proposal by then Mayor David Miller. Now, as with any other transit project in Toronto, it's been mucked with by politicians at all different levels, delayed, and ultimately scaled down to save costs. Is that how transit gets built in your city? Let me know in the comments.
So far, it's missed a bunch of opening dates. It was originally supposed to open in 2020, but that got pushed back to 2021, then to the vaguely defined date of well into 2022, and delayed again with the claim it would open by the end of 2022. In late 2022, they announced not only that it wouldn't be opening in 2022, but that they were not going to state an opening date or even what year it might open. In summer 2023, they announced that by the end of the summer they would have an announcement of an opening date, but they missed that pre-announced announcement, and in early fall they announced that they still weren't announcing a date, but instead were announcing that they would have announcements every couple of months. 2 months later, at the end of November, they announced that they weren't announcing an opening date, but they announced that they would announce an opening date 3 months before the opening. In December, they announced that some of the remaining work can't be done in winter weather. Over 3 years after its originally proposed opening, this line may not have carried an actual passenger yet, but it's a world-class generator of announcements.
The central and western parts of this line are mostly underground, while the eastern part is mostly above ground. There's quite a bit of variation in design among the underground stations. The above-ground stops are somewhat more consistent. This one, the Winford stop, is pretty typical. The tracks run down the middle and there are platforms on either side. They're not all like that though. The very next stop to the east of here, at Sloane, has a center platform with the tracks on either side. Most of the above-ground stops are at intersections, so the crosswalks for the intersection provide access to the platforms. This one is actually mid-block, so it has its own crosswalk. The line is built for trains of 3 cars. During testing, they started out just running individual vehicles, then trains of 2, and then trains of 3. Most of the testing they're doing these days uses trains of 2 cars. All right, let's watch some trains go by and talk about the line some more.
The vehicles will look somewhat familiar to TTC streetcar passengers. They're from the same product line, but a different model. Unlike the streetcars, these vehicles have doors on both sides for a few reasons. As we just saw, not all the platforms are on the same side, so they need doors on both sides of the trains. Toronto's streetcars go around loops at the end of their runs so that the front of the vehicle always faces forward and the same side of the vehicle faces the curb, but these vehicles act more like subway trains. At the end of the line, they could pull into the platform on either side of the station. Then the operator gets out of their cab, goes to the cab at the other end of the train, and the train heads out in the opposite direction. Each vehicle only has a cab at one end. The other end just has a basic set of controls in case it needs to be reversed manually. When the vehicles are coupled to form trains, they make sure there's a cab at each end of the train.
There are a number of technical differences too between these vehicles and the streetcars. That would make for a really nerdy video. Let me know in the comments whether you want me to do that. But there's one that I want to point out. These vehicles have self-driving capabilities. Within the maintenance and storage facility and the storage tracks, they can actually drive themselves with no humans on board. On the above-ground sections like this, there is a human driver who's in control of the vehicle. And in the underground and other separated sections towards the center and west of the line, the vehicles essentially drive themselves with a driver on board monitoring operation.
The vehicles may also look familiar to viewers in Waterloo region or Edmonton. Waterloo's Ion LRT line uses the same vehicles, and Edmonton's Valley line uses a slight variation on them. This model, the Flexity Freedom, is modular, and Edmonton's vehicles have 7 modules per vehicle as opposed to the 5 modules per vehicle in Toronto and Waterloo.
Well, that's a quick look at this line while it's still in testing. Hopefully it will open at some point, and I'll be able to do another video once it's open. If you'd like to see that, or if you just enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe.